In this video, we're going to be looking at solving three-step linear equations. Once again, we'll be looking at the two methods of solving. First of all, backtracking with a flowchart, and secondly, using inverse operations. Here we have our first equation, and once again, we need to look carefully and see what operations are being performed on our unknown variable and in what order are they being performed. If we look carefully at this equation, we can see that our unknown variable a is being multiplied first of all by 4. Then it's being added 2. And then we are dividing by 9. So on our flowchart, we're going to put in our operations in that order. We times by 4, we add 2, and then we divide by 9. So that means to solve our equation and backtrack, we need to use the inverse operations in the opposite order. So what we're going to do first is, to backtrack, we're going to times by 9, minus 2, and then divide by 4. So performing those operations in that order, we're going to say 2 times 9 gives me 18. 18 minus 2 gives me 16. 16 divided by 4 gives me 4. So therefore, A will equal 4. Now let's solve again using inverse operations. Now we saw in our backtracking that the first operation we had to perform to undo the equation was to times by 9. So that's what we're going to do to both sides of the equation. We're going to times by 9 and we're going to times 2 by 9. This divided by 9 and times by 9 will cancel out so that we are left with 4a plus 2 is equal to 2 times 9, which is 18. The next thing we had to do to both sides of the equation is to minus 2. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to minus 2 to one side and minus 2 to the other side. Now, plus 2 and minus 2 cancel out, so we are left with 4a is equal to 18 minus 2, which is 16. Finally, we had to divide by 4. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 4. Now, times 4 and divided by 4 cancel out, so we've got a is equal to 16 divided by 4, which is 4. The same answer that we got when we were backtracking. Let's try another equation. 2x over 5 minus 3 is equal to 3. Now, the first thing that we do to our unknown variable is we times by 2. We can see that here. The next thing we do to it is to divide by 5. The last thing we do is we minus 3. Minus 3. Okay, so now to undo our equation, we're going to do the inverse operations in the opposite order. So to undo minus 3, we're going to plus 3. To undo divided by 5, we're going to times by 5. To undo times 2, we're going to divide by 2. And now we can solve. 3 plus 3 gives us 6. 6 times 5 gives us 30. 30 divided by 2 gives us 15. So our solution is x is equal to 15. Now let's do the same thing using inverse operations. Now we saw earlier that the first thing that we did to undo the equation was to plus 3. So this is what we're going to do with this equation. We're going to plus 3 to both sides of the equation. Now, minus 3 plus 3 will cancel out. So we have 2x over 5 is equal to 3 plus 3, which is 6. The next thing that we had to do was to times by 5. So we're going to do that to both sides of the equation as well. We're going to times both sides by 5. Now, divided by 5 and times 5 cancels out. So we're left with 2x is equal to 6 times 5, which is 30. The last thing we had to do was to divide both sides by 2. So we do that to both sides, and times 2 and divided by 2 cancel out. So we're left with x is equal to 30 divided by 2, which is 15. Okay, let's look at this third equation. Now, once again, let's look and see what operations are being performed on our unknown variable x and what order are they being performed in. So x is inside the bracket, so the first thing that we do to x is we're going to minus 3. So we're going to put that in there. After that, we times by 7. And lastly, we then divide by 2. And the answer is 21. So to backtrack, we're going to first of all have to times by 2, then we're going to divide by 7, and then we're going to add 3. So when we perform all those operations and work backwards, we say 21 times 2 gives us 42. 42 divided by 7 gives us 6, and 6 plus 3 gives us 9. So our answer is x is equal to 9. Okay, let's try and solve our equation now using inverse operations. Now, if we look at our flowchart, we can see that the first thing that we had to do to undo our equation and work back to x was to times by 2. So I'm going to times both sides of the equation by 2. When I do that, divided by 2 and times 2 cancel out. So I'm left with 7 times x minus 3 is equal to 21 times 2, which is 42. Then the second thing we had to do to undo our equation was to divide by 7. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 7. Now, times 7 and divided by 7 will cancel out. So we are left with x minus 3 is equal to 42 divided by 7, which is 6. Now, because x minus 7 is now left on its own, we don't have to use the bracket. We can leave the bracket off. Now, the last thing we had to do to undo our equation was to add 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. Minus 3 and plus 3 will cancel out, and I'm left with x is equal to 6 plus 3, which gives us 9. The same solution that we got when we were using our backtracking. Okay, now let's look at our final equation. 2 times 3x minus 5 plus 5 is equal to 46. Okay, so once again, what's the first thing that we are doing to x in this equation? We are timesing by 3. Then we are adding 5. And finally, we are timesing all of that by 2. So on our flow chart, we're going to have times 3 first, then plus 5, then times 2 again. And the answer is 46. So when I backtrack, the first thing I need to do is divide by 2. Then I minus 5. Then I divide by 3. So let's do that now and see if we can get our answer. 46 divided by 2 gives me 23. 23 minus 5 gives me 18. 18 divided by 3 gives me 6. So x is equal to 6. Now let's do the same thing using inverse operations. So the first thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to divide by 2. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 2. Now, times 2 and divided by 2 cancel out. So we are left with 3x plus 5 is equal to 46 divided by 2, which gives you 23. Now, the next thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to minus 5. So I'm going to minus 5 from both sides of the equation. So here I've got minus 5 and here I've got minus 5. Now, plus 5 and minus 5 will cancel out. So I am left with 3x is equal to 23 minus 5, which is 18. Finally, we had to divide by 3. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 3, times 3 and divided by 3 will cancel out. So we are left with x is equal to 18 divided by 3, which is 6. The same answer that we got when we were backtracking. I hope this helps you for solving 3-step equations.